Hey, what's up? Hello everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and today we are going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Make sure to drop a like or a dislike if you don't like what we have to say. Subscribe because we're going to be talking even more Oscar news, even more movie reviews. But before we dive into this is a spoiler discussion. If you've already seen Guardians, welcome. Stay. If you haven't seen it, go on and watch this because, a little spoiler here, I think that we both very much enjoyed this movie, right?
I think we both are maybe a little bit more mixed than most people are on this. I've seen people say this is maybe the best movie that Marvel has put out since the last two Avengers movies. I've seen some people even go so far as to say it is the best movie Marvel has ever made. I know I've been a little bit less harsh on Marvel recently than you are.
Yeah. So for me personally, the MCU has been on a major decline ever since Infinity War. And yeah, I hear the complaints. I said Infinity War, not Endgame. I enjoyed Far From Home. I thought Endgame was a massive swing, and it was a massive miss for me. Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Eternals, Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, Quantumania, the list goes on and on and on. Massive stinkers to me. But we did have some diamonds in the rough. I mean, No Way Home was a lot of fun. Shang-Chi was a nice switch up of vibe. And even though I had a lot of issues with the movie itself, Wakanda Forever is a very well-made movie. That all leads us to Volume 3, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I adored Volumes 1 and 2. I thought James Gunn adds a lot of much-needed originality and creative flair behind the director's chair, as well as the script. I think this amazing ensemble cast continues to prove why they are the best group in all of the MCU. I think this is the best movie since Infinity War.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Endgame really made people collectively gaslight themselves into thinking that the MCU was always good or was always consistent. It has never been consistent. The MCU has always been hit or miss. There's always been good movies and there's always been bad movies. That has just been a fact. You look through Phase 1, Phase 2, less Phase 3. Phase 3 was pretty consistent. But Phase 1 and Phase 2 had a lot of stinkers. Actually, Phase 3 had some too. Ant-Man and the Wasp. With the MCU, it's always been some good or a lot more mediocre. It's just a lot of stuff where you walk out of it and you forget about it. We saw how everything led up to Endgame and Infinity War, and we want that right away. When that's not what the MCU really was before, and we've all just been tricked into thinking it was. Really, honestly, that's how I feel about it. So Guardians Volume 3 is a hit after a string of misses, but not all misses. I mean, Black Panther Wakanda Forever just came out in November, and that one got great reviews. It was overall very well liked. I don't think we can say it's been all misses. I mean, people were over the moon about No Way Home as well. It seems like every single time a decent to good Marvel movie comes out now, people clamor over it being like, oh my god, it's the first time we've seen something good since Endgame. I'd say my initial thoughts here are mixed overall on Guardians Volume 3. I liked it, but it is my least favorite in the series. If the first Guardians was a 10 out of 10 for me, the second Guardians was a light 9 out of 10, this is a light 8 out of 10. I have a lot of problems with the pacing in the script of this movie, the way it rushes from scene to scene, but what this movie does well, the rocket scenes, it does so incredibly well that it boosts this movie, in my opinion.
We've had the chance to fall in love with the Guardians of the Galaxy over 5 films now, and a holiday special, which I guess I have to say I never saw, so I was a little confused to where Cosmo came from, but hey, Cosmo, you are a good dog, because Maria Bakalova added some much-needed comic book relief. She's always great to see pop up and stuff ever since I first was introduced to her in Borat 2. But back to our main cast. They all get times to shine. They all have great moments and satisfying conclusions for all of them. Well, most of them.
You mentioned the Christmas special. The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is the worst thing that Marvel has ever put out. I know people are like, it's just meant to be like cute and fun. And I'm like, yes, it is. But also, James Gunn bragged about writing that movie in 45 minutes, and you can tell that he wrote that movie in 45 minutes. It feels like a first draft, because it is a first draft. Never have I seen someone brag so much about making his work be so low effort. And that's the problem with the Disney Plus stuff, though. They say that you don't need to watch it, but they provide a lot of context. Like, you'd know a little bit more. So they say you don't need to watch it, but, like, it provides a lot of really valuable context, and you feel like you're missing out if you don't. That said, the cast, as you mentioned, ties these movies together. You can point out any person in these movies and say that they're the standout, I really gotta say the comic relief here of Dave Bautista and Pom Klementieff. They are so fun to watch together. They have such great chemistry. They really had a lot of moments to shine here. I would say Bradley Cooper, but I think a lot of the heavy lifting in that performance was not the voice work, but the mocap and the realization of the character through the VFX.
I've always thought Dave Bautista's Drax was the standout in these movies, and that's no different here. And I think that Palm adds some really, really great performance as Mantis, because I feel like she was very underused in Volume 2 in both Avengers movies. Like, she was just there, but never really given much to do, but here carries the movie. Everyone's favorite actor, Chris Pratt, continues to prove why, the haters may be wrong. Like, maybe as a person, he's not that good, but as an actor, he's really, really talented. He knows how to hit the comedic moments, as well as the dramatic moments, especially in this movie, but the heart of this film falls on Rocket, as you mentioned. I think his parts of the movie and the stuff specifically with the High Evolutionary, or what makes Volume 3 stand out to be some of the best moments in the Guardians or even the MCU movies as a whole.
The Rocket storyline is the heart of this movie. As he says in this film, this has been your story all along. It really has. Rocket is the one that everyone's fallen in love with the most in these films, for good reason. He is such a good character, and he has such a tragic backstory, and we finally get to see where he came from. Using animals to create emotional connection is basically like a cheat code in films, because we always associate animals with pure kindness, innocence, especially baby animals. You already feel emotions in the first second of this movie as we hear Creep playing and we zoom in on a baby raccoon looking terrified. That immediately made me feel like upset, and the movie just keeps hitting you with that throughout. Like, it keeps going in on these animals being these sort of tragic characters that they don't know what's going on, and they're being pulled in all these different directions forcibly by these characters that just want to use them. So yeah, these scenes are the highlight of the movie. All of this stuff with Rocket and the animals, it actually made me bump the film up a star rating from how I felt overall with it.
On top of being just so engaging and so captivating, like you can't take your eyes off it, that scene with Lila, Teef's floor, Rocket, while they're all locked up, learning, bonding, becoming friends, really adds to who Rocket is as a character. When you meet him in Volume 1 and you get to see his progression over time, he's already had a group of close friends, and he lost them kind of due to his own fault, even if it was for a good reason. So when he meets the Guardians originally, he's very standoffish, and he doesn't want them because he doesn't want to hurt more people, but he grows to love them. And I think the full circle moment of the Guardians essentially putting their life on the line to save him was a very nice, touching thing to bring this whole trilogy of films together. The High Evolutionary, I think, adds so much to this movie. It's a very manic and bold, in-your-face performance. Normally with these villains, we see them gradually grow, but he's always at a 10, and I think it works. I think it really delivers that much needed foil to what is usually goofy movies with the Guardians, having that sense of danger, also adding a sense of, despair to start the movie. At least is that cold opening with Radiohead's Creep, the acoustic version. I think it just sets the mood so well going forward. You know what you're getting with this movie. I was a big fan of the scenes involving Kraglin and Cosmo. Even though I hadn't seen the holiday special, I thought their dynamic was very fun, and it added much needed comic relief, because normally their scenes would come somewhere around those baby Rocket scenes too, so you just get something very dark, and then now you can get something a little bit funny. That final fight scene, not the one with the High Evolutionary, but the one that's in his ship, where it's basically a pseudo one take, but that just shows the right way that you do slow-mo.
You can really tell when Marvel lets its directors do what they want. James Gunn really did what he wanted on these fight scenes. But I gotta say, my standout was the ending sequence with Florence and the Machine, The Dog Days Are Over playing. Oh my god, it made me so happy / sad, both at the same time. It's sort of this celebration of what we had with these characters, knowing that we may never have that again.
Well, to continue about things that we love with this movie, I think all the Guardians movies have had great technical aspects, and I think this movie elevates for some of the series highs, because this film does not look like it's in front of a green screen. And I think that the hair and makeup work here is so good. It's so detailed. My one nitpick would be the gold on the Warlocks looks kind of bad, but I think that's more played for comedic stuff as well, but overall everyone else looks great. The people on Counter Earth look amazing. The Guardians themselves look better than they ever have before, and the soundtracks, as always, are killer, whether it's playing Creep at the beginning or Florence and the Machine at the end or any of the other song cues throughout. They always kind of find like just the perfect song to play at the right moment. The VFX work, especially on Rocket and his friends in the facility, it really adds to the emotional weight.
The difference between the VFX in this movie and so many other Marvel movies in the past few years, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Thor: Love and Thunder, is that they are actually interacting with the characters. That's what sets this apart from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where it just looks like they were in front of things the entire time and never actually interacting with things. So everything looks more real here because it feels tangible. It feels like they could touch that thing. But the makeup is the standout here. Like you already mentioned, Counter Earth, the High Evolutionary's face, fantastic work. It is just so well done, as well as some of the gore makeup when the High Evolutionary's face gets ripped off. My god, they need to nominate this for best makeup at the Oscars.
Obviously, neither of us are saying this is a 10 out of 10. I'm a high 8, you're a low 8. So my biggest issue with this movie is it somehow feels too long while also feeling too short. The Gamora stuff was very much just kind of roped in. It's like, oh, we have to give her something, so she just goes back. I think that Gunn kind of got inherited with a dead storyline to begin with. I feel like she shouldn't have come back, but you know, you're kind of handed the character and you just have to figure out something. A lot of it felt like it rushed through stuff while also having so much more they could have dived into. As we mentioned before, I think all the Rocket stuff is perfectly paced. Just all of the stuff involving saving Rocket felt very much breezed through while you could have gone a little bit deeper into everything.
I have a theory as to why it feels both too long and too short, and I think it's because they rush from scene to scene and they take too much time in the individual scenes. So, like, for example, Counter Earth, they're there, and then within 5 minutes, suddenly the Earth is blowing up. The plot moves too fast. There's not enough buffer room between things, and yet the movie still feels very long because in the individual scenes, James Gunn wants to use the scenes to create funny character moments and dialogue. The entire Oglecorp scene, they spend like 5 minutes there just quipping back and forth at each other, and it feels like a pause in the movie. Despite the fact that the movie has been breakneck pace to get to this point, suddenly they're just sitting there talking back and forth, and nothing's progressing. But then because they just took that time to do nothing, now they have to rush through the next thing. The room to breathe always happens when they're in the middle of an action sequence and they decide to take a couple minutes to just joke around, rather than being in between the set pieces. I wouldn't want to cut some of the plot here because it is important, but just to get a little bit more at the beginning with Adam Warlock before he just bursts through the wall, as well as just to see a little bit more with the High Evolutionary before, because at this point they meet him and suddenly he's like, I'm blowing up the world, bye-bye.
Like I mentioned before, I think the High Evolutionary is great. I love the performance here. I love how it's so manic, so bold, so all over the place. And I just wish we got more screen time, but I don't really know where you could fit in more screen time. But for Oscar chances, something else I also like, because I feel like pretty confident in 2 nominations, visual effects, hair and makeup, and a sound shortlist seems pretty likely. I mean, Marvel usually gets 1 in the shortlist. I just don't know if this can break into a actual nomination.
I had it on a bunch of other lists as a potential, just in case the film was a total, like, revelation, got crazy critic reviews. If it could have landed into PGA, we could have seen a path to the Oscars for this for some other categories, but I just don't see that really happening anymore. I would say it maxes out at 2, visual effects and hair and makeup.
And obviously, it doesn't really have a shot to win either, but who knows? It could be a solid number 2 in both. Well, everyone out there, definitely let us know what your thoughts were on Volume 3. What were some of your highlights of the movie? What were some stuff that you wish could be improved? But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.